Stay with me. He
Oh,
grabbed his
there's
thumb.
more. You got to say, and there's more.
And there's more. He grabbed his thumb and he calmly walked over to his daughter. And he said, "Sweetheart, there are going to be some consequences for what just happened here. You willfully disobeyed me. You're going to pay to fix the car. You're going to pay to fix a mailbox. And your mom and I are going to talk about when you'll be driving again." He said, "But I want you to know this. You are my daughter. You are far more valuable, precious, and special to me than any car or any mailbox. I love you. Come here."
Many people want to be leaders. Fewer understand what it really means to lead people well. So what separates the two? Welcome to the Lead with Purpose podcast with your host, Merv Jersek. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with leaders who have been in the trenches and have stories to tell. They'll share their practical wisdom to help cut through the noise and get to the heart of leadership. So let's get started.
Hey, welcome to this week's edition of Lead with Purpose podcast. My guest today is a friend, Ron Price, whose brand revolves around, I would say, two words, and that is play nice. Can I just say that anyone who has willingly stepped into conflict for 30 years, as Ron has, either has a calling or he needs a therapist. And knowing Ron, he'd probably say both. But as I understand it, and as I've come to know Ron, he has spent decades helping people navigate conflict, rebuild relationships through what he calls playing nice. But here's the twist. This isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about getting better at it. Because the truth is, if you can't handle conflict, you can't lead people. And so that's what we're here all about, leading with purpose, and we're about to dive in. Welcome, Ron.
Merv, thank you. And by the way, I often do tell people I've spent much of my life putting myself between people who are at odds with each other. And if that doesn't tell you I'm a sick man, I don't know what will. But,
Well,
Merv,
as
it's always a great joy when people come into my office, bitter, hostile, adversarial, and leave not best buds, but at least better able to function together, be it at home, at work, wherever. It's been an enjoyable career.
As long as Ron is it's not between Mike Tyson and his opponent, I think you're fine, right?
There you go. So
tell my audience in the next, couple minutes, how you found your calling in this area of conflict resolution.
That's an easy question to answer, Merv. I was a probation parole officer. In fact, no, that's not where we first met. Never mind.
No.
I was a probation parole officer, and I was happily employed. I was satisfied. I wasn't looking for anything. But one day I was looking through the want ads. Don't know why. But an ad jumped out at me that the district court was starting a new program called custody mediation. And Merv, I was drawn to it. I was compelled to it. I had to find out what that was about. And sure enough, I found out that if a couple's getting divorced, they have kids, don't go to the judge and say, "Hey, judge, how should we share time with the kids?" That's foolish. Work it out yourselves. Well, that's fine and good, but if you're getting divorced, you're probably not on the best of speaking terms. So that's why they started this mediation program. I just jumped in and again did that for 29 years. And through those years, I went to several workshops and conferences and seminars. I've always considered myself a training junkie. I love to learn. And I've been mediating for the Postal Service for 30 years. I've done landlord-tenant disputes. I've done neighbor-neighbor. A variety of, because like you said earlier, conflict's inevitable. You're gonna have conflict, and trying to avoid it, yeah, good luck.
Yeah,
But manage it well, yeah.
So I think having the fact that you've been in conflict resolution, conflict management for 30 years, what do you think, just right out of the gate, let's hit our audience with right out of the gate, what do you think most people in leadership get wrong about conflict?
They forget the fact that while they want to be understood by others want to be understood by them. And that's a universal problem, Merv. Again, you want to be understood by the important people in your life. True or false?
True, absolutely.
The important people in your life want to be understood by you. True or false?
Absolutely, yes.
So many, if not most, conflicts occur because two or more people are trying to be understood at the same time. So they're talking at each other, with a goal of persuasion rather than talking with each other with the goal of understanding. And if a leader would suspend their need to be understood, obviously they need to be understood, hello, but if they would give that gift to the other first, hey, help me understand how you see this. I've got some thoughts to share, but how do you see this situation? And really listen. That's a great gift that I think will serve them well.
So as you were saying that, my thought was going back to when I used to be employed before I retired. And I can, with what you were saying, I can see the difference between, say, peer to peer versus leader to team member. So is there, because a team member can see a leader as being sort of could see a leader as being an imposing figure, an authoritative figure. And so how does the leader manage that so that the team member feels like they're being heard?
Well, again, it comes down to respect, Merv, and I can't think of any better way to show respect than to say, I need to understand you. Now, again, as leader, yeah, you've got to implement certain company policies, procedures. You've got a job to do. I get that. But but you still have time if you do it right to personalize the relationship. No, not buddy buddy. I'm not saying that. But let the person know you care about them as a human being, not just somebody who contributes to the company's bottom line. You're going to get better performance out of them, and you're going to be able to mitigate conflicts that arise and prevent many that otherwise might have come to the surface.
My goodness, you are speaking my language because my motto is people first. So you are absolutely speaking my language.
I like it.
Um, I, I I introduced you with the phrase "play nice," and some people might think that that means avoid conflict, but I don't think that's what you mean at all. You're not being soft when you talk about
No.
playing nice, are you?
Actually, I've written 3 books. Play
Okay.
nice in your sandbox at work, play nice in your sandbox at home, and then play nice in your sandbox at church. All places where people engage, interact with others frequently enough that conflict can arise. And so the play portion in each book is a 4-step model. How do you prevent conflict? Not avoid it, prevent it from happening in the first place.
Ah.
The nice is, all right, how do you resolve the significant differences that can't or couldn't be prevented and need to be resolved? So the whole expression is play nice in your sandbox. People give you a little insight into your friend Ron Price. People ask me, where did you grow up? I always respond, I'm trying to do it in Farmington, New Mexico.
Yeah.
I I don't want to grow up. I want to be an adult. I want to be responsible for myself, contributing member of society, but I don't want to grow up. So I've had some fun with that sandbox analogy.
Well, and as a young kid, I used to play in the sandbox a lot, and so I understand that is a great analogy. And I think what you're talking again, what I'm hearing you say is that you're not avoiding conflict, you're
Right.
trying to prevent it, but you're also not being soft about it once it occurs.
Right. And again, just real quick, one way to prevent a conflict, if somebody says something attacking to you, demeaning, put down, you can just react and get right back at them and create a conflict. Or you can pause and say something like, well, that seemed like an attack. Is that really how you meant it?
Yeah,
I got that from a guy named Ken Futch, a public speaker out of Atlanta, Georgia area. Well, that sounded like a put down. Is that how you meant it?
that's
And notice
great.
the tone. He doesn't say, well, that sounded like a put down. Is that how you meant it? The fight is on. It's the second person, Merv,
Yeah.
who usually creates the conflict. If you can respond cool, calm, and collected, not always easy, I know, but if you can do that, you can prevent a lot of conflicts. You just react. No, the conflict is probably on and you created it.
Yeah. One of the things that in fact, I just had a conversation this weekend with another leader, and I hate the term soft skills because
Mhm.
what we're learning as leaders when we're managing or leading people, those are the hard skills, the people skills. And so
Yeah.
if I look at conflict management, if you had to treat it as a hard skill, and I think it is, what do you think are some of the core components that a leader must master to be able to deal with preventing conflicts or handling it once it happens?
One that jumps to mind, Merv, is timing. It, it,
Okay.
it, we have a part of our brain that thinks, we have a part of our brain that feels. I think I'm pointing in the right direction. The frontal lobe and the amygdala, or the deep limbic system. Frontal lobe is the seat of logic and reason and rationale and thought, good place to do life from. The amygdala is the emotional center of the brain, and at times a good place to do life from as well, but not a good place to make decisions from. And again, back to your question about what causes so many conflicts, if somebody's upset about something, agitated, irritated, they probably have left their thinking brain. They're probably smack dab in their emotional brain. That is not the time to have a conversation. It's not going to go well if one, let alone both, are in that emotional brain. So timing matters. If you have an important, sensitive topic to run by somebody, you might want to check, hey, is this a good time, or when would be a good time? Don't let them say, 5 years from Tuesday,
Yeah.
but say, you know what? When's a good time? And they say, how about next week? No, I need to talk to you sooner. You can be firm, but still be conflict preventing at the same time.
Well, it almost sounds too like in the moment, maybe that old adage about counting to 10 before responding isn't such a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea at all. Again, whatever it takes to get back into your thinking brain and respond rather than react. Again, I alluded to this a moment ago, but
Mhm.
Merv, reaction is instantaneous. No
Yeah,
thought. Something happens, boom. Something happens, boom. Something happens, boom. By definition, no thought is involved in that. Response is a different story. So somebody says something, somebody does something, rather than just react, pause a moment and choose how you want to respond. You'll prevent a lot of conflicts.
so would you say so I'm thinking that exact single moment because we get triggered by
Oh,
all kinds of stuff, right?
right.
So would you say in that exact single moment of respond versus react, is that do you think that's where the leader either wins or completely loses the situation?
Sure can be. Yeah. It certainly can be, because again, the other person just did or said whatever they did for who knows what reason, probably because they're hurting. At that moment, Merv, they're hurting.
Yeah.
And Merv, my friend, let me tell you something I know about you. Agree or tell me I'm wrong. Some parts of your life right now are going real well. Don't need any improvement at all. Some parts of your life probably have some pain associated with them, or you'd like it to be in a better place. Am I close, or
Actually, I've since I've retired and have relaxed with grandkids and travel and stuff, that second part has left me in a good stead. So
you are blessed and rare,
I
Merv?
am blessed.
Most everyone has parts of their life, like something, a troubled relationship with
Yeah,
somebody in the family, or a health issue, or who knows what. Most people are hurting in some area of their life. And you may just be there when they're experiencing pain from that moment.
that's
If
true.
you take it personal, good luck. Now,
Yeah.
maybe it is personal. That's a different story. That's a whole different matter. But if we can think more about them and what's going on with them, not saying put up with bad behavior, or, feel sorry for them or anything of the sort, just realize most people aren't out to get you. And if somebody just has said something unkind or done something unkind, it probably says more about their state of mind than about you.
I think that's an aha right there. It says more about them than you, and as a result, you should be thinking, therefore, towards them and not in terms of how it's affecting you.
Right.
Am I close?
You are close. And again, that can explain bad behavior, not excuse it. I'm not
True.
saying, oh, they're hurting, so, it's okay if they come to work drunk, or, they didn't embezzle that much because I know they got some trouble fight. Come on, use some common sense here.
Yeah.
But it can explain, and that's going to impact how you deal with the person and the situation.
Well, and again, I want to explore this just a little further, because you've probably seen people at their worst. So, for a leader in the situation that you've just been describing, what separates those leaders who can regulate themselves in the conflict from those who just basically react and therefore escalate it?
Oh boy, lots of different things. But let me share a Bible verse, Merv, that is
Okay.
in the culture. Everybody knows it, whether you read the Bible or not. You will love your neighbor as you love yourself. You've heard that saying. Now, that's a commandment. People who do read the Bible and follow Christ, they're supposed to do that. But Merv, it's also a prophecy. You will love your neighbor as you love yourself. And most people struggle with that.
Hmm.
We all listen to the critical inner voice, the CIV, the voice that says you're not this enough, you're not that enough, you're too much this,
Wow.
you're too much that. We've been listening to it for decades. And so if I'm not at peace with myself, Merv, it's very easy, very difficult, I should say, for me to be at peace with someone else.
Yeah.
If I'm not at peace with myself and someone says something cutting or treats me in a way, boy, it's going to be hard for me just to respond. I'm going to react right back.
Well,
So my
then,
first step is to be at peace with yourself.
mhm.
Whatever you need to do that, stay within yourself. And if you can stay in that thinking brain, I don't know if we got time, but I got a story about grab your thumb. That's a technique I teach that
I love
helps people.
story.
Do you? All right. All
I
right.
love story, Ron.
This comes from Tom and Bev Rogers. They have a Christian counseling center back in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they teach that anger is a secondary emotion. And Merv, you've probably heard that before. You're never angry just because you're angry. There's always an underlying reason why you're angry. And so what they teach is when you're angry or upset, grab your thumb, kind of an anchor, look at your fingers and think, why am I angry? What should I do about it? Again, the thumb is an anchor. By looking at your fingers and thinking, you're forcing yourself into the command center.
Hmm.
And they tell a story to illustrate this. They were counseling a couple. Merv, he was 6 foot plenty, a traveling salesman. She was 5 foot barely, a stay-at-home mom. And he had a problem with anger. And he would come home from road trips and just get upset. Why isn't dinner ready? Why isn't the house picked up? Why are the kids? It didn't matter. He would get upset about something. She had enough of that. She said, we're going to counseling, and he agreed. And at counseling with the Rogers, they taught him what I just shared, the anger secondary emotion. Grab your thumb, look at your fingers, think. He said, all right, I'll try it. And he does. And for months, there's no angry outbursts in that home because
Wow.
whenever he started to get angry, you know what? I'm tired. I should probably just go take a quick nap before dinner. You know what? I'm hungry. I should probably go grab a quick bite before dinner. You know what? I'm still stressed from the day. I should probably go just take a walk before dinner. Do you hear what I'm saying, Merv?
Yeah.
Instead of just, he would grab his thumb. He'd think about a proper response. The story goes on. It gets even better. There's peace in that home for months. Months. No angry outbursts. Until the day he comes home and his 15-year-old daughter greets him at the door and says, Dad, can we go for a drive? He had a shiny sports car. She had her learner's permit. He said, all right, sweetheart. Note the eye roll, by the way. All right, sweetheart. Here's the keys to the car. Go start it, but don't move it. I'll be right out. Merv, you give the keys to a car to a 15-year-old girl. You tell her to start it, but not move it. What is she going to do?
Uh-huh. She's going to
Move
move
it.
it.
In this case, and it's a true story, right into and over the brick mailbox.
Oh, my goodness.
Dad hears the commotion, comes running out, instantly starts to experience an emotion. You can probably guess it's anger.
Yeah.
The daughter jumps out of the car and yells, Dad, quick, grab your thumb. Stay with me. He
Oh,
grabbed his
there's
thumb.
more. You got to
He,
say it. And there's more.
and there's more. He grabbed his thumb and he calmly walked over to his daughter. And he said, sweetheart, there are going to be some consequences for what just happened here. You willfully disobeyed me. You're going to pay to fix the car. You're going to pay to fix the mailbox. And your mom and I are going to talk about when you'll be driving again. He said, but I want you to know this. You are my daughter. You are far more valuable, precious, and special to me than any car or any mailbox. I love you. Come here. And he gave her a daddy's tender, loving, reassuring embrace. Merv, do you think that daughter had an inkling that she had messed up? Do you think she would have
Oh, yeah.
benefited from a lecture on why thou shalt not drive daddy's car into and over a brick mailbox? And you and I can well imagine the words that might have come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Such damning, hurtful words that would not have stopped at her ears. They would have gone right to her heart and damaged his relationship with her, possibly for years. Merv, he grabbed his thumb,
Yeah. Wow.
stayed in his thinking brain, and he responded in the best possible way.
It-
So you're talking to somebody, excuse me, who's heated, agitated,
yeah,
just grab your thumb,
grab
do
your
it
thumb.
out of view. They don't have to see. Grab your thumb, do whatever you have to do to stay in that thinking brain. You're going to respond, less likely going to react.
Well, that is incredible. One of the things I ask my audience to do when they listen to these podcasts is to take one thing from the podcast and immediately apply it when they shut the podcast off. Today, it's grab your thumb.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
keep that one.
I have a dream that I'm going to walk around town. I'm going to see the cast on thumbs because people grab their thumbs too hard. But no, I promise you, it's a great technique.
Well, and I had another question for you. I'm trying to. Oh, yeah. It was in terms of some specific phases or approaches that can consistently calm conflict. That story is probably a preeminent one in terms of being able to, first of all, check yourself. But secondly, that embrace of his daughter, it's not that you necessarily embrace your team member when they mess up, but you can approach that team member with managerial affection, if I can use that term, and just ensure that they also feel that respect that you have for them.
And Merv, I totally agree, and I think it's also helpful to keep the big picture in mind. Very likely it's a good employee who happened to mess up. Well,
Yeah,
so is their whole career damaged because of one mess up? Or do you say, that's out of character and I'm not going to overreact. I'm going to address it, but I'm not going to overreact. I'm going to keep the big picture in mind. I don't want to have to replace that person and train somebody new. Let's work through and deal with this situation and get back to a better place. Keep the big picture in mind is usually going to be helpful in a lot of situations.
yeah. And in that particular situation, what you just talked about was I used to live in California, and I know working with folks out of Palo Alto and that if you weren't messing up, you weren't trying hard enough in some cases. So, sometimes you make a mistake, but then you advance as a result of that. But from a leadership perspective, make sure that you're not holding that against them.
And that the culture permits. Yeah,
Yeah.
you tried, you failed, we're gonna back you. As long as
Yeah.
you were well motivated, come on, you weren't playing games or goofing off, and it didn't work, we're gonna back you. That's the culture that we have here. That successful enterprises have that culture in place.
Yeah. No, that's great. One of the things that I write about in my book, I think you bought a copy of my book, if I
I
recall.
did, Murph,
Yeah,
I did.
you
Yep.
did. In fact, you drove from Farmington to Albuquerque to attend our book signing. That was incredible.
Wow.
So I appreciate that. But one of the things that I talk about a lot in the book is influencing even when you don't have authority. In other words, you don't have line management
Right,
authority or that sort of thing.
right.
So, but you're still a leader. So you may not have formal authority, but in a situation like that, I'm suspecting I know your answer, but how do you navigate conflict when you can't pull rank or you can't kind of put your authority over that person?
You well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're limited or you have more options if you are in leadership, but Merv, we're everybody's watching you.
Yeah,
Everybody's watching every one of us, and so we impact people, we influence people whether we realize it or not.
yeah.
And wasn't it Shakespeare that said, "To thine own self be true"? I forget the rest of it, but eh,
It was
you know,
Shakespeare. Yeah,
if you are true to yourself, you hold your ideals high and live by them, you're gonna have an influence on people whether you realize it or not. In a major way, not always, but quite possibly when it's most needed, yes.
yeah. One of the things I think I did look at your website at one point. And I think one of the things you talked about was empathy. And so, as a leader, having empathy, having that, first of all, control, self control, but also that empathy towards others. And if I understand that, what that really is saying is that even as you deal with a conflict, you're always exuding that respect or that empathy for the other person.
I like that, Merv, and I may have to put that on my website because I'm
Well, I
not.
thought I read that in your website. Maybe I
I
read
think
it.
I think what you're alluding to, and it does tie, so that's fine. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm a big fan of the Covey 7 Habits of
Sure.
Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
I used to teach that at my local San Juan college. It's a good program. And he talks in there about 5 levels of listening. And this again is another key leadership principle, concept, if you will. 5 levels of listening. One is ignoring. And Merv, you know the feeling when you're talking to somebody and they're just ignoring you. That's not a fun feeling.
Yeah.
I wouldn't swear to it, but you may have done that to others. I have.
Oh,
There's just been times
yeah.
I'm just totally ignoring. The next level up that's less bad but not good is pretend listening. And again, you've had that experience where somebody's pretending to listen to you. They're kind of like the dog in the windshield,
Yeah.
they're in the front window, they're nodding up and down, they're not listening.
Yeah.
The next level up is selective listening. And this is where, yeah, they're listening, but through their own mindset and trying to grab onto something that they can connect with. Merv, have you ever been in a conversation you're telling somebody about a vacation or a business project or something important to you, and the next thing you know, the conversation's about their vacation or their
Sure.
business project or whatever.
Yeah.
They hijacked the conversation
Yeah.
because they were selectively listening. They stole it away.
Hmm.
The next level is attentive listening. And that sounds okay, and it's a lot less bad than the others, but it's still attending from your own frame of reference. What do you want to know? How do you feel about what they're saying? You're still in your own mind. The only real fine, excellent way to listen is the hardest, empathetic or empathic listening.
Yeah.
Listening with everything you got to just what they want you to understand.
Yeah.
And Merv, if you know people in your life who really will take the time to listen to you empathetically, not pathetically,
Yeah.
empathetically, Merv, you're fortunate.
Yeah.
There's not many people like that around. It's a great gift and a great skill that leaders who want to be followed. What's that expression? You've probably heard that. There they go. I must hurry. I'm their leader.
Yeah.
If you if you want people to follow you, boy, you focus on being an empathic listener.
Yeah.
People are
I,
going to walk away going, you know what? I want to work for that person. I want to help them look good.
you just reminded me of some of the conferences I've been at. When you meet people in conferences, there's a lot of people. They're talking to you, but they're looking to see who else might be in the
Right,
room,
right.
right?
Who's more important than you? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, this is my goodness. This time has flown by. I think I warned you about this. I love to end this with some rapid fire questions, some rapid fire Q&A, just to kind of close us out and just to enjoy this. But um, I think you've already answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In terms of conflict, do you address it immediately or let it breathe?
Depends. If one or both are not well, if one or
Yeah.
both are not in the right frame of mind to address it,
Yeah.
then no, you put it off to a better time.
Yeah.
If
No, that makes
it's
sense.
obviously the sooner the better, but um, well, I got one more for you, but it's not a rapid fire. You can be disruptive. You
Okay.
can be disruptive. You're having a conversation that's not going well. All you got to do is say, you know what? Hold on, hold on, hold on. I all of a sudden have an urge for some fresh air. Let's go outside for a walk and talk about this along the way. You disrupted the ugly.
Hmm.
You get outside, you have a chance for a do-over. Come on, we need to talk with each other. You go first. Help me understand where you're coming from. And I'm going to listen, then hopefully you'll do the same for me. So if you can address it right away, if both people are prepared, yes. If not, either be disruptive or schedule it for a later time.
That's excellent. So here's another one. What do you think is harder, apologizing or forgiving?
Ooh, I've never done either one, Merv, so I don't.
Yes, you have.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Oh boy. Again, Merv, if so much of life, the more I try to worry about myself, the less happy I am.
Yep.
Again, I need to watch out for myself. Nobody else is going to do that. I realize that. But if I can genuinely go through life caring for other people, that's a good way to do it. So it should be easy to apologize. You're in my generation. You remember that movie Love Story. The
Oh
theme
yeah.
was love is never having to say, I'm sorry.
What a lie.
Gag me.
What a lie.
What a lie. It's frequently having to say, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. And
exactly.
again, somebody once said to withhold forgiveness, unforgiveness is the poison we drink expecting the other person to die.
Yes, that is excellent.
It's a powerful quote. Unforgiving, you hold on to it, they probably don't even know it's gonna
Y-
eat you up. Now,
Yeah,
forgiving doesn't mean that what they did was okay, doesn't even mean you need to stay in relationship with them. But for your sake as well as theirs, you better be willing to let it go
yeah,
and not carry that with you for the rest of your life.
exactly. I'll give you one more, and then we'll wrap this up. What do you think is one sentence besides "hold your thumb" every leader should say more often?
What jumps to mind, and I don't know the source for this quote, I tried to find it and I couldn't. We judge ourselves by our motives, we judge others by their actions.
Huh?
We judge ourselves by our motives. You know, maybe I messed up, but I was well intended.
Oh yeah,
You, on the other hand, messed up, and we never stop to think that maybe they were well intended. Maybe they didn't mean to mess up.
yeah.
We judge ourselves by our motives. We judge others by their actions.
Back to people first, right? Back to people first.
Yeah,
So if let me wrap it up this way. Where can our listeners, our leadership listeners, find you if they should want to connect or take advantage of your offerings?
sure. Ron at ronprice.com is my email, ron at ronprice.com. That's pretty simple. My website, you can probably guess, is ronprice.com. And Murph, thank you. In addition to my books, I put together a couple of video courses
Oh, good.
on relationship CPR, conflict prevent no, CPR mastery, that's what I call it. CPR mastery, conflict prevention and resolution, where I recorded videos 5, 6, 7 minutes, giving a teaching like we've done right now. How do you call a timeout the correct way? How do you prevent people from pushing your buttons?
Yeah.
How do you resolve conflict? And each lesson has a worksheet with it, so it's perfect for 15-minute staff meetings to learn and install a conflict management technique. Come back next week and pick up another one. So if people are interested in my books or the course, they can email me, ron at ronprice.com. Be happy to talk to you about that.
And what a great way for leaders, first of all, to learn these traits, but secondly, for their teams to understand why their leaders are suddenly changing for the better,
Yeah.
for the better. Well, Ron, I want to thank you for, and I'm going to say sage advice to our leader listeners, no matter what their level is. So you've reminded me certainly that leadership isn't tested when things are easy. It's tested when there's tension, there's disagreement, in the moments when relationships are on the line. And we've had a great conversation about protecting those relationships. And what I learned also today is that playing nice isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about perhaps preventing, but it's also about handling conflict with discipline and clarity. And most of all, I think with respect.
Hmm.
And again, to me, at the end of the day, leadership is relational. And if you can't lead in the relationship, you can't lead in the result. So, fellow leaders, come back next week where we continue to master these skills, the hard skills of leadership, to put people first and to lead with purpose. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Murph.
If today's conversation added value, make sure you subscribe. And if this episode resonated, please leave a quick review to help other leaders discover the show. And remember, leadership works best when you put people first. Let's lead with purpose, together.